Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Future Ready Leadership. My guest today, David Sable. He is currently the vice chairman at Stagwell, executive board member at the Special Olympics and UNCF. Also the former CEO at Young and Rubicam Group from 2011 to 2019, and also a board member at Ethan Allen and American Eagle Outfitters. The list can go on and on and on, but then we'll be here all day. David, thank you for
Yeah, and it's a waste of time. It keeps me busy. It's
exactly,
good.
exactly. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
Thank you for inviting me, Jacob. I'm good. It's just good to talk
Yeah,
to you. Looking forward to a good
before I
discussion.
hit record, you mentioned that you're a big fan of the Doors. So,
I am. Oh my God. You know, the problem is I'm a wannabe hippie. It embarrasses my kids. I was a little too young to be like a real hippie, so the older I get, the more I get this wannabe thing going. So you can see behind me my Peter Max original poster. Sort
wow.
of like every day I walk into the office and it makes me think, oh God, what a time.
I grew up listening to classic rock because my dad's obsessed with all of that stuff. So I grew up listening to the Doors and Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles, and
Of
even when
course.
I was,
Can I tell you, I just bought a turntable. I haven't had a turntable in more years than I can think. Just because like I'm always sort of like on the bleeding edge of new technology and stuff. It is so awesome. The only problem, the music is definitely better. I have real speakers. Like I put this, it's amazing. And I'm listening to the Doors and the Beatles and Hendrix and everybody. The only problem is I forgot what it's like to have to get up to flip sides.
yeah, that can make things a little bit annoying.
I just discovered why technology evolved to stream. Like you don't have to do
It's
that.
funny. My dad is from the Republic of Georgia, and so it used to be part of their
Oh
USSR.
wow.
And he told me the story how one time he went on a trip. I think it was to Czechoslovakia or someplace in Europe, and they had chaperones with them. And because communism there, they just wanted to make sure you didn't get out of line or anything like that. And so my dad found a Jimi Hendrix poster when he was on this trip, and he bought the Jimi Hendrix poster. And one of the other people that were on this tour with him ratted him out. And so the chaperone goes over to him and says, "Hey, let me see this poster of Jimi Hendrix or let me see this poster that you bought." And my dad didn't say who it was. He said, "Oh, this is actually a poster of Angela Davis." Um, and the chaperone and Angela
I love
Davis, for
it.
people not familiar, she was a longtime member of the Communist Party. She actually taught or still teaches at my former school, UC Santa Cruz.
She
And
does.
yeah, the guy didn't know who Jimi Hendrix really was. And my dad said, "Yeah,
And they actually had similar
yes,
froze too, by the
yeah."
way. So that's actually
So my
proof
dad's like,
positive.
"Yeah, it's Angela Davis. She's the leader of the Communist Party." And then the chaperone was like, "Oh, good for you for getting that poster and bringing it back to Russia."
Good for
Yeah.
you. Good
So
for you.
I wish my dad still had that poster. That would have been quite a thing to have. But anyway, um, tell me a little bit of background information about you. How did you get to become the CEO of Young and Rubicam Group? And for people who are not familiar with it, can you share a little bit of background information about the company?
Yeah, sure. Young and Rubicam, which doesn't exist anymore, it's become VML, was one of the iconic, absolutely maybe one of the most iconic advertising agencies back in the day, and long before the Mad Men, actually. It was founded by two guys, by Young and Rubicam. The first agency ever founded by creatives, so it's kind of interesting. Some of the work that they did was just some of the best ever. They were known for their smarts. We had the very first Insight group back in the day, Dan Yankelovich. I mean, you can't even imagine what it was like. When I came into it in 1976, I was an intern.
Wow.
It was like Mecca. It was Mecca. Like literally, I remember they hadn't had a training program for the longest time, and they restarted it, and there were like 2,000 applicants for 5 positions.
Jeez.
And to come in, you had to be accepted by a department, and then you would train. So to some of the younger people who might be listening who think about they don't want to come into the office or you know life balance and whatever, you had to give them back. First of all, you got paid nothing, like garbage. You got paid so low that you got overtime, but you didn't get overtime until you paid back 2 hours of training time.
Hmm.
So, in other words, you owed them in their minds 2 hours every day because you were doing training. So to them, like, you owe it to them. Like, you don't you they're paying you for it, but they wouldn't give you overtime until you gave back those 2 hours. If you came in the morning before 7 o'clock, they gave you, I'm not sure if the numbers are exact, but they're close enough. $5 unreceipted, $8 receipted for breakfast. And if you stayed after 8 at night, you got $10 unreceipted, $15 receipted for dinner.
Wow.
So I came in every morning at 6:30 and I left every morning, probably every night about midnight. So I got every day, I made $15. Friday, they used to give it to you in an envelope in cash.
Jeez.
And that was my weekend date money.
So you were working what, 14, 15, 16-hour days every day?
Oh, at least. We would work all day. Um, and when I say we, it wasn't just me. I was just like a trainee, but the people who were also in the agency, who were the younger cadre, we would be working all day. At midnight, very often we'd go down to CBGB's and party. And then we'd go home, maybe sleep an hour, shower, and come back and start again. I don't know how I managed to do that for a year, but I
So
did.
like the
It was quite a time. I mean, it was a different world, but you learned a lot. I learned tremendous amount. I learned how to write things I still do till
so the
today.
show
I learned how to write a
Mad
memo.
Men is pretty accurate to Young and Rubicam.
Yeah, well, Young and Rubicam was actually the company that they modeled it on.
Oh.
If you read the backstory. And I think what's interesting is when I became CEO, this really happened. First day, like I walk into my office, first day I get a call. It's from the producer of Mad Men. I don't know him, but he's calling to give me a heads up that on the next episode, there's going to be an incident about this racist thing that had actually happened at Young and Rubicam back in the early 60s.
Wow.
And at first I thought he's got to be making this up. And then I did some research and found out that it actually had happened. And it was pretty astounding. But the things that you see were really true. The anti-Semitism was true. It was interesting, different than today's anti-Semitism. I mean, I don't mean to. I don't want to, God forbid, give this a veneer of that it's okay, because it wasn't okay, but it was different. It was sort of like this genteel anti-Semitism. And so, interesting enough, if you there's PBS did a special, which was really interesting to watch, a documentary called "The Real Madmen of Madison Avenue."
Oh.
There were the real madmen and women of Madison Avenue, and they interviewed a lot of the people from that age, right? So that was before my time, but then they interviewed a couple of people from my generation. So myself, David Lubars, and somebody else, I think. And we talked about what it was like when I came in. But the truth is that I was hit with anti-Semitism my first set of interviews.
Wow.
I was lost. Like I had never experienced this, right? So I came to them from their, probably at the time, their biggest client, who I'd been interning for, and I'd done amazing projects. I was designing things. I was writing stuff. I mean, I had an incredible mentor, Edward Chapman, who remained my mentor till the day he died. And they wanted me. This was New York Telephone, which at the time was basically like AT&T. This is before the Bell breakup, and they wanted me to work at Young and Rubicam because I had been their intern and I did such a good job in their mind. So they send me, and I go in, and so the first job that I interview for is in the creative department. So, and the truth is, my hair was really long. I had a big mustache. I did wear a suit. I
Everyday
wasn't
suit and tie to
Zelensky.
work?
I did wear a suit that day. I wasn't a big suit wearer because I still had, I was into bell-bottom jeans and, shirts without
Okay, so
collars
you
and
didn't
stuff.
wear a
But
suit and tie
but
every day.
I did wear a suit. But this is just my interview. I show up, and they were very professorial in those days. It's actually funny today. Like, everybody in the creative department wears all
Yep.
black. In those days, they wore all tweed. Everybody, everybody wore like a tweed jacket and the little white shirt and a tie, like the whole deal, right? And he said to me, and I came in, you have to understand, it wasn't like I was coming from Pace or one of the art schools and I came in with a portfolio of made up stuff. I walked in with real work, with ads that I had done that had run, with stuff I designed and I wasn't an art director, right? I was just directing the whole process. Stuff I designed that ended up being, system wide in their thing. Television commercials I worked on, like you can't imagine. So he said to me, and I'm showing him this, I'm thinking, wow, I'm pretty good, right? And he goes, you wouldn't be comfortable here. I said, okay, that's interesting. All right, fine. What do you think? He said, well, there's an opening in account management. And, you might be comfortable there. I said, okay, great. So I go, and I guess they sort of felt they had to do something with me. So they send me to account management, and I meet the guy. So now everybody there was tweed. These guys were more suits and, gray slacks and, really buttoned up and loafers, Gucci loafers. And he said to me, you wouldn't be comfortable with this client.
Hmm.
I said, okay, I don't know how you know that, but all right, I hear you. He said, but you will be comfortable with Joe Astro. And he said it like 3 times. And all of a sudden, the dime dropped. The you, which I'd heard many times after that, you was sort of like Jew. And Joe Astro was the head of media, and he was a Jewish guy.
Uh,
And that's what they sent me. And now the truth is, I had never in my life thought I'd end up in the media department. Smartest thing. I mean, I think like God sent me there because it gave me discipline. I really learned the business. I learned computing, which I would never have learned anyplace else. I learned I learned how the business really runs. So I'm blessed that that happened. But
hmm.
that's true.
How many employees?
And so looking back, it's like,
Yeah.
wow.
How many employees were at Young and Rubicam when you were there?
So I think when I left, when I put VML and Y&R together, and we started VML Y&R, and then I stayed another couple of years. I think we had about 18,000 maybe
Wow.
around the world, something like that. There were no countries we weren't in. There's no country I haven't been to or worked in. As we rolled things out.
And then after the merger, how big was the company when you stayed along for a few more years?
Well, now no, it was about that. I'm saying that's what we
Okay,
we
around
probably came
18,000.
up. But now it's bigger. So now they changed the name. They took the Y&R name out, and now it's
Hmm.
just VML.
Here's a good question for HR and leaders everywhere. In the 2 years since AI went mainstream, how much has it empowered you to actually improve employee engagement? How about well-being? Or to achieve cultural transformation? The truth is, HR is under more pressure than ever, but most AI solutions are a waste of your time, budgets, and bandwidth. You need a smarter kind of AI that answers your most critical questions. Enter human intelligence from WorkHuman. By combining AI with the rich data of their #1 rated employee recognition platform, WorkHuman's human intelligence unlocks insights and capabilities that redefine talent management, cultural transformation, and employee engagement. Human intelligence puts answers at your fingertips to questions like, who in marketing is a flight risk? Where are our talent or skills gaps? Who are our next generation of leaders? Or how do we build engagement? Learn about human intelligence at workhuman.com and join their force for good. Again, that is workhuman.com. It's interesting. You mentioned the work and the hours that you were putting in, and you alluded to people today who are complaining about getting back into the office, and then you kind of went on how many hours you spent. What do you think about what's going on today in the workplace? Because today, as we're speaking, there was a mandate that just came out, I saw today, from the state of California. And our governor here, Gavin Newsom, just signed an executive order mandating everybody who works for the federal government to show up to the office 4 days a week. And that's around 95,000 employees. And of course, I go online and he's getting torn to pieces. And any company that mandates employees coming back to the office, Jamie Dimon was the recent example. And
Jamie didn't just mandate. Jamie told them to get their asses in.
Yes. And I
Like, it's a big. There is seriously, there is a difference because people mandate, other people say like get in or
yeah.
get out. And Jamie basically said, get in or get out. Look, I want to be really clear. We live in, this is a business, in my view, that is only better by people being together. I have to tell you, I come in every day. I'm here in my office at Stagwell. I love the people I work with. Like, I work with some of the smartest people I've ever worked with. And people come to the office. It is I'm just looking outside here. I mean, it's pretty full. And I love it. I love coming in. I love talking to people. I love seeing people. The notion of the water cooler talk is not it's not apocryphal. It's not old. It's not dinosaur. It's
Mm.
just true. Human nature works better when you're face to face. It just does. Now I get that there are businesses that don't need you face to face. So for example, the for years the Accentures and the PwCs and the Deloittes, because on their auditing side, on their accounting side, most of those people were away anyways all the time at clients. So they didn't bother to give them real offices. They came in
Yes.
and they sat. In our industry, the first person who really thought about, for example, even just hoteling, like hot desking, so you don't actually have a place to sit, you come in when you want, was Jay Chiat.
Mm.
And this is back when I was a kid. And he would talk about it and he'd brag about it. Truth is, you talk to anybody who worked there, they all thought it was terrible. They hated it. And when I look here, we have a best practice at Stagwell. Like, people have seats and their names are there. So you come in, you have a place to go to.
Hmm.
Like, if you don't have a place to go to, you might as well go sit in Starbucks. That's part of the problem. We haven't made it clear that the culture is around feeling part of the culture. Like, you got to feel it. You got to be
Yeah.
in it. I was out last night with a head of public affairs for emerging markets of Google and a lawyer, and we were just talking about a bunch of stuff. And the lawyer was talking about how you have all these associates who don't come in. And he said, like, how are they ever going to learn? They're just not going to learn. So he was saying, he was talking to one of the associates, he's on a particular case, and had she been sitting next to him, he would have pointed stuff out. He would have pulled stuff
Yeah.
up. Instead, he's got to share his screen and blow it up and say, "Hey, follow this." So I'm all about you. There's no reason not to. Like, on the contrary, you should be begging to come into the office. Young people, listen to me. You should beg to come into the office. You will learn so much more. You will go so much farther in your life. Like, it's just the
Yeah.
experience. Like, the people you just bump into, the serendipity of discussion, of having. I'm all about serendipity because you just never know. You never know who you're going to bump into. You don't know who you're going to meet in the street walking to the office.
What do you say then to all the people who say, well, David, because I agree with you. I think there's a lot of value for the in-person stuff. And it sounds like your position is very clear. You're a big believer in people getting into the office. And I think a lot of executives and leaders today are moving towards that direction. But then you see a big pushback and you see researchers or psychologists or studies coming out that say, well, actually, you're more productive from home according to what the data and the research says. And you see a lot of employees. I already see you're shaking your head, so I'm going to get to you on this. That's one thing. And then you see a lot of employees now, which is interesting. I've never seen this before, where employees are saying, okay, you want me back into the office? Prove and give me data, Mr. David, executive or CEO or vice chairman. Prove to me and show me data that explains why me being in the office is better than me being at home. So I'm curious to get your
Okay.
thoughts on those two elements.
So let's come to the second one first. Here's the bottom line, right? What is employment? Employment is a pact between an employer and an employee. Now, sadly, during COVID, the media blew up this absolute nonsensical story that employees were now in charge. And I begged fellow CEOs that I knew who were telling their people they never have to come back. I said, guys, don't do that. Big mistake. because maybe it's going to change. Why don't you just say right now during COVID, like there's no need, we're going to figure it out, and just leave it open. Instead, they all went and said, no, you never have to come back. So now those very people are the ones that are the most screwed because there are people saying, hey, like you told me I never have to come back. So I moved to Colorado. And now you want me back in New York, pay for me, whatever. So I think that's a
Yes.
problem. It's a pact, though. I'm hiring you. Hello, wake up. Like, you don't want to work here. Go find a job someplace else. So the great resignation turned out to be total bullshit. The notion that employees are in charge, like, what does that even mean? Like, you're not paying your salary. The company is paying your salary. So if I, as the company, say, look, guys, you got to be here 4 days. If I said 5 days, too bad. Like you don't like it, go find another job. So that's I'm like a hard ass on this. Now, if your company says you don't have to come in, that's great. Find those companies to work for. Like it's fine. Nobody says you can't. Nobody says I'm right. All I'm saying is every company doesn't have to do that. But if you work for a company that wants you to come in, work someplace else. As for the productivity, this is really interesting. Long before COVID, Microsoft did a study because this is not new, right? Not coming into the office, whatever. So Microsoft did a study. They had two groups, right? One group worked all at home, programmers. One group worked at home, and of course, you know that there's the famous like people sleeping in the office kind of thing that used to still goes on among some of the more techie companies. Now, here's the truth: the people who worked at home far surpassed the people who came to the office in lines of code. Depends what you're measuring, right? So, Mark Penn, our founder and CEO, is really the ultimate pollster. It's always about the question you ask. So, if you're measuring productivity strictly on lines of code, man, those guys are amazing. Difference was the people in the office brought way more products to market. Not just way more. They brought like exponentially more products to market. These guys brought nothing to market. So yeah, they were working individually. It was great. And I had now, to be fair, this is before Zoom, before this. So let's assume Zoom came up, and then they'd maybe have a little more interaction. But the guys in the office who were, hanging out together all day long, who were having those serendipitous meetings, who were going to lunch and talking about, hey, like I was doing this thing of code, and what do you think? And the use case. But they could do it all the time. They didn't have to get on a Teams call if you're at Microsoft today, because they just killed Skype or whatever. Like that's fine, but they were way more productive. So I believe that it depends what you call productivity.
And productivity is
I can tell.
not the only metric, right? Because
No, of course not.
there's innovation, there's customer service, there's leadership development and growth, there is collaboration,
You
there's
exactly. So you can't. You're never going to learn growth. You're never going to collaborate. Imagine if you're in kin. Like, let's go back. What if I said to you, right, that when you went to preschool, you didn't have to come in to be social with anybody. You could dial it in. Could you imagine what would be happening? Like, could you possibly imagine what our world would be like? Nobody would have social skills. People wouldn't know how to act. They wouldn't know how to be together. Nobody would ever suggest that. So now, and if you, I mean, I shouldn't say that. Maybe people do. That's great. So you take your kid, put them on Zoom or whatever, and let them, have that as their experience in life. But I guarantee you that they're not going to go as far as the kids who are mucking it up in the sandbox and, building blocks together. It's just not going
yeah,
to
there
be
was
that.
actually a study, I think it was from 2017 or 2018. I can't remember who put it out, but they basically said that in an office, if you put a high performer next to other people, the 25-foot radius around you matters a lot. And if you're sitting next to a high performer within 25 feet, your productivity and your performance goes up. But similarly, if you're sitting next to a low performer, somebody who doesn't want to be there, your productivity and all that sort of stuff goes down. So the in person stuff clearly does make a difference. And I'm totally with you on the office, right? I think there's a lot of value and a lot of importance for people getting together. But there's still a lot of pushback. Like somebody might come to you and say, "Well, David, prove to me, right? This is what I hear and I see all the time." Do you feel that leaders and CEOs, do they need to prove this to their employees?
No, absolutely not. It's their company. They can do whatever they want. I I think, and by the way, I don't think Jamie Dimon would even accept that as a question.
Yeah.
There's certain things you can't get into discussion about, right? It doesn't work. Like I would never get into a discussion of that. Prove it. I can't prove it. I can't prove it. I can't prove that allowing you to walk your dog whenever you want, or to go to the gym at 10 o'clock in the morning instead of 5 o'clock like I go, is a in the morning is valuable, is more valuable to your life. I can't prove that. But I know that as a human being, you will develop more, better, in different ways than if you're stuck at home and walking your dog all day. I just know it. It's just the way it
Yeah.
is. And so again,
So your response then
I'm
for
not, I'm not being critical of anyone. Like if you can get a job that allows you to do that, to walk your dog whenever you want to, go to the gym whenever you want to, never come into the office, dial it in, then you should grab it if that's what you want to do. Personally, if you were coming to me for advice, if I was your life coach, I would say, I get that you want to do it, but I think it's a mistake because I don't think that you'll develop as much as someone who goes
yeah.
into the office,
So then your response
And I think that's the
okay,
key.
so then your response for leaders where employees are saying, "Hey, no, give me the evidence," is like, "I don't need to. I'm the CEO. I'm your boss. This is what I'm telling you. You can pick." That's what Jamie Dimon said, right? He's like, "This is a free country. You can vote with your feet." And there are lots of other companies
Yeah,
out there. You're more than I'm not mad at you if you want to leave, but if you want to stay, this is the type of company that we have. I don't need to prove anything to you.
absolutely. So let me tell you. So let me flip this a little bit, and we talk about balance of life because that always becomes the issue, right? Like balance of life. I need to have my balance of life. Now, I get asked this question all the time in forums of young people or when I'm interviewing young people for jobs. And my answer is like pretty simple. If you're going to spend your life looking for balance of life based on 100% of a day, so first of all, it depends what you consider 100% of a day. Do you think it's 9 to 5? Okay, like I don't know. I never worked 9 to 5 in my life, but if you think that it's 9 to 5, that's fine. I get it. But if you're going to take that amount of time and say, okay, I need 50%, I'm going to do this, 40%, I'm going to do this, 20, and that's how you run your day, you will be the most boring person in the world. You will bore yourself ultimately, and you won't develop. It's just not. You can't run your life that way. So the way I run it, one of my friends calls this Sable math. So Sable math is really simple. I learned this early in my career. So back in the early 80s, I picked up being so I had lived in Israel for a bunch of years with my wife. We got married. We moved to Israel for a few years, started a company. I came back. So I had traveled a lot. When I came back to America, I discovered like people didn't travel so much. So in Y&R, I ended up, or Burson Marsteller, where I started, and then Y&R was all part of the same company. Um, I became the international guy.
Hmm.
So they were sending me around the world because I could get off a plane basically any place and function. Right? Nobody did this. And so, but I would go look, but remember, this is days before there were no cell phones. We didn't have computers. We didn't have email. So you had an
Hmm.
AT&T collect credit card that you had to be able to access an AT&T line for, which you couldn't do in every country and every place. So I was in Indonesia during a coup. I was in the Philippines during a coup. You can't even imagine. And my wife said, "Look, here's the story. You're the bigger of the breadwinners here. So this is important. Developing your career this way is important. But when you're home, you need to be home 100%, whatever it is you're doing. Like in the moment, you have to be 100%." And that's when I learned. the balance of life is being 100% in whatever it is you're doing for whatever period of time. So that's why my friend calls it Sable math, because sometimes it adds up to 1,000%, but it doesn't matter. So if you're doing something for 10 minutes, you need to be in it fully,
Mm.
100%. If you're home for only an hour with your kid, 100%. So a number of years ago, I was talking to my daughters about something. I think we were at some event for one of the grandkids, and I said, I feel real bad because I don't think that I was there enough at your things. And they both looked at me and said, "What are you talking about, Dad? You were at everything." And so I was or I wasn't. I don't think I was, honestly, but I did coach Little League. I did as much as I could. Went to every play. I went to all. But when I was there, I was in.
Mm.
I was in. And that's the key, right? The key is just don't worry about dividing your day by 100. Just be 100% in whatever you
Yeah.
do. You'll be so much more, it's so much more enriching
What's your
and so much more fulfilling.
what's your philosophy then on kind of the hard work and work hours? Because I even saw today, for example, the CEO of Google was telling one of his divisions for Google Gemini, their AI product, he was saying the sweet spot of productivity, if you work here, is at least 60 hours a week, right? 12 hours a day if you're working Monday through Friday. And it feels like a lot of employees today, if you tell them that, might get offended, right? I'm doing 32 to 40 hours a week. So, what's your it seems like a little bit of a tough love approach, right? I mean, you have people like Jamie Dimon who are like, I'm tired of this crap. I don't care. You don't want to work here. That's fine. Get back to the office every day. I don't care what you think. I'm not showing you any data in the office. And you have a lot of CEOs who are starting to say that, right? I need more time from you. I don't want 32 hours. I want 40. I want 50. I want 60 hours. I want you to work harder, be more competitive, be more cutthroat. What is your advice, your philosophy on that? And what do you say to people who get upset or offended or disagree or consider that to be insensitive, right? Like, David, no, I don't want to be in the office. I don't want to work 40. My mental health, my well-being is more important than, being there for 50 hours.
I hear it. I respect it. And so find a job that gets you those hours. So, like for example, you can be a waiter. I was a waiter when I was younger. Be a waiter. You make your own hours, right? Like it's pretty simple. Make your own hours, draw your own schedule. You know, you do what you want. But even then, so my younger daughter was a Soul Cycle real rock star kind of instructor, right? But she'd sometimes have to be 5 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 in the morning at the first session. Sometimes she'd have to be at night. She didn't work straight through the day, but then she became a trainer, so she has her own clients or whatever. And now she opened a gym. She has her own gym. She has her own brand. It's called Elevate. It's really cool. She's amazing. She works from 5 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night every day. It's her business. She has nobody to talk to. I just no, she can't say, okay, call her boss up and say, hey, this is no good and there's no bounce. And yet, meanwhile, her life, she comes home for the kids. She's always there. Like she figures it out. I, I honestly, I don't respect people who don't just pick up and do something else if they can't deal with it. Don't be in a company and fester if you can't have it. Now, by the same token, I'm not into telling somebody to be here 60 hours. I never did that. My view is you stay, always was. If you can finish what you're doing in 3 hours and like you've done it all and you've done it 100% and it's amazing and you want the rest of that day for you, that particular day for yourself, take it. Never penalized anybody like that. God forbid.
Hmm.
I always let people work from home, even 10, 20 years ago, if that was good for them that day, not forever, but if that day or whatever they want an extra day, we never did that. But the point is that if I needed you 24 hours, you were there.
Hmm.
If I needed you to put in 48 hours, like to get a hotel room next door, go sleep for an hour, come back and shower and get in because we're really like we're pushing on a new piece of business and we got to finish it. Or the client has called us and we got to work. Do you know how many times I worked over holidays? How many times I got quiet? And here's the bullshit, right? I got called back in my career for more holidays than you could ever imagine. Like personal holidays, personal vacations, biggest crisis. And like nothing ever happened. Like it was not one of them was, it was all fire drills, right? But having said that, every one of those fire drills created some better relationship with a client who realized afterwards that it was, but then now there was a relationship there because we were all kind of in it
Mm.
together. Now, I'll tell you the only thing that I keep Sabbath, right? So I'm Orthodox. I keep Sabbath. I've kept it my entire
Mm.
career. Every Friday since I started working, I leave so I can get home in time. I don't pick up the phone. I don't look at my email. I don't answer nothing.
No
Zero.
TV, no electricity of any kind.
No TV, no nothing, zero. I keep that and I recommend to everybody like pick a Sabbath, pick Tuesday at 3 to 5. That's your Sabbath. But it has to be the same. Put all your stuff away. Go walk in the park. Find your better half. Well, it doesn't make a difference. Just do something and just make that your make that your holy day
Mm.
in your mind, right? I don't mean
Yeah.
religiously. Just like make it that you want great mental health, put your freaking thing away. Because see, you're sitting at home, you don't want to work, but you're sitting like doing TikTok and all this other crap. Like put it all away. And I'm guilty of that all day long, right? So I'll tell you, this is true. I've written about this a lot. I literally have a Jones, like an addict. If I don't have my phone in my hand or if I'm not close, and I'm known for answering pretty quickly, like stupidly quickly. But come Sabbath, I don't feel it because I know I'm not going to touch it. So I don't have the draw.
Mm.
You only have the addiction when you know that it's there and you can pick it up because you're like this. But when you know you're not going to, because you've made that mental decision. In my case, it's a religious one, but it doesn't matter. It's not like I think I'm going to die if I
Yeah,
pick it
yeah.
up. I don't think God hit me with a thunderbolt. It's not my belief, but I do it because that's my
Mm.
practice. And I think that keeps you want to talk about mental health. That keeps my mental health.
Where, or how do you think this changed? Well, I guess first, do you think it's different? So, did our work ethic change as far as hours, time, commitment? Has that changed over the? It seems and it feels like it did, especially when you're seeing all these return to office mandates, and just collectively, a lot of CEOs that I talked to in an interview, they feel like there's a vibe shift, if you want to call it. And some people say, well, we just work differently. We're still working hard, we're just working differently. We're not in the office, we're now just working on our phones, we're working all around the go, it's just different. So some people do make that argument and say that, and other people say no. um, but how do you think this change has happened, right, where employees are now, I don't want to come into the office, you justify, show me data, give me evidence why I need to be there? Because this conversation, it seems like if you were to have it when you were CEO or 10, 15, 20 years ago, like I can't imagine somebody going to Jack Welch or Steve Ballmer or you in 2012 saying, hey, David, I don't want to be in the office. And you say, come back into work. And you're like, no, David, you give me data that shows me why I need to be here.
So let me tell you something. I knew Jack really well. I wrote speeches for him when I was a Burson Marsteller, and Baumer was my client. And Baumer, by the way, is Mark Penn's partner in founding Stagwell. He was our first
Oh,
investor.
interesting.
Yeah. Mark worked for him. Mark was the head of strategy for Microsoft is also my client, which is actually funny. We had been colleagues at WPP. He was head of Burson. I was head of Y&R. We were good friends, and then he went to, and Microsoft was one of our biggest accounts, one of the biggest accounts in WPP at the time. He went to WPP. Immediately, he gave me another bunch of money, so it made it even bigger, which was amazing. Both of those guys, I don't even want to tell you. Don't forget, Welch is a guy who said every year you got to cut
Oh yeah.
10% of the bottom of your. And I used to think, wow, that is so cruel. And I once asked him, and he said, no, it's not cruel. He said it's actually a blessing for those people
Hmm.
because they're not making it. They're dragging the company down, they're dragging themselves down. People are resentful. It's better to get rid of them and let them go do something else where they're going to flourish. So true or not, whether that's really accurate or not is irrelevant. But that's what he believed, and that's what he did. Neither one of those guys would have ever, in 1,000 years, have let this happen. I think before COVID, people were starting to feel maybe a little put on. Maybe they didn't have to work so hard, whatever. I think COVID was the killer.
Hmm.
COVID is where it all went
Yeah.
south because people were home and you're sitting all day in your pajamas or your sweatsuit and you kind of got on when you wanted to. And everybody says, they really made it work. And some companies did. Many companies did. Like very few companies went under, right? Most managed and did
Yeah.
well. But the question is, what does that mean? Did they do their best work? They did okay.
Hmm.
You know, did were those people going to be the future leaders of their company? Probably not. So I think COVID was the killer because we just got used to not being in the office,
So it's interesting because
and I think and we got by.
yeah, yeah. Well,
I couldn't wait to get back. By the way, personally.
yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because some people point to COVID as a proof point for why people don't need to be in the office. But it seems like you view the opposite as COVID being a proof point for why we do need to be in the office.
It was a freaking
Yeah.
plague. Hello. It's not like this was this existential moment that was created to teach us not to come to the office. It was a
Yeah, but
plague,
that's how a lot of people think
right? So
about it.
imagine back in the Middle Ages, right? So it's the Black Plague, and everybody just stayed in their house. Nobody ever came out again. Like everybody just stayed away. Like where would society be? Where would
Yeah.
civilization be? Where would art be? Where would literature be? Where would thinking be? Where would innovation be? No
But
place.
it's funny because that's how people think of COVID. They think of it as the world's greatest case study for why you don't need to be in the office and why you can use technology like Zoom. And people say, well, look, even during COVID, our businesses grew, our businesses were thriving, and it's all because of technology and Zoom and Teams. And see, we don't need to be in the office anymore.
So first of all, everybody grew as we were coming out of COVID, and the growing was mostly retailers because they pumped, as you recall, the government pumped money into the system, and everybody went out and bought. So every retailer was going crazy. Like anything you could buy just went off the
Yep.
charts because people had money and they'd been locked up in their houses for so long. They were just happy to get out. I mean, look at the fact, like just look at the other proof points here. More people are going to concerts than ever
Yeah.
before. So everybody predicted concerts would die. This goes back even before COVID. Are you kidding me? I took my granddaughter to Taylor Swift with 50,000 freaking people in that. Like wow, amazing. Like concerts, people, sports events, more people than ever going to. Restaurants are packed, right? Travel. Oh my God, we're back to traveling. So why do I need to travel? Hey, I don't have to go to an office. I don't need to be anyplace. I'll just zoom it in,
Hmm.
right? Like, hey, just I'll watch, Piccadilly Circus on my computer. I'll see the Last Supper on my computer. Like, what do I need to go anyplace for? It's
Yeah.
brilliant. Come on. It's like the argument is just bad.
I have a feeling after this episode goes up, one of us are going to get a lot of angry comments or emails. Hopefully, it's going to be directed towards you.
No. So first of all, anybody's willing to. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just telling you my
Yeah.
view. I'm not judging, guys. Listen. Knee jerk alert. Knee jerk alert before you start trolling me. Like, so listen carefully. Stay home. Don't come to the office. God bless you. If you can make it work and your employer is happy with it, that's what you should do. I'm just suggesting that you might think about what you might get out of coming to be with people. That's all.
HR just changed for good with the introduction of human intelligence. By combining AI and the uniquely authentic data of WorkHuman's #1 rated employee recognition platform, Human Intelligence helps you discover what good looks like in your company, with previously unobtainable insights into skills, performance, culture, and more. Human Intelligence also helps coach employees on what good peer-to-peer recognition looks like, turning every good job into better engagement, retention, and well-being. And it helps surface feel-good stories that illustrate the best of your company culture. In short, it's how today's leading companies are turning AI into a force for good. Learn about human intelligence at workhuman.com. Again, that is workhuman.com. It's funny, the most angry and the most comments and the most viewed thing I've ever done was a commentary on Jamie Dimon's announcement. And this I put up maybe a month ago. And I basically explained that I see Jamie Dimon's point, and I echoed a lot of his sentiments and said that, look, the market will decide. If people don't want to work at his company, then they'll leave. And kind of reiterated some of his points, alluded to the issues, because he, in the leaked audio call, he specifically mentioned a couple issues. He said he felt that the younger generation was being left behind. He couldn't find anybody in the office. Like, he specifically pointed to issues. And so I called all those out on this little reaction video that I did. And so 6 million impressions later, hundreds of comments. Not only are people getting mad at JP, at Diamond, they're going off on me. How could you? You're insensitive. You're an idiot. Why would you promote this? You're supposed to be for employees. You wrote a book on employee experience. You're a moron. And people were going nuts.
Well,
And
everybody wants to go nuts on me. God bless them. And if you think I'm a moron, I'm sorry. I'm a moron. Like, I don't get angry about stuff like that. I don't argue with people about this issue. I don't get angry because I don't honestly. If I hire someone, I'm going to hire somebody who wants to be around people. And if you don't, that's
yeah.
fine. I don't hold it against you. I'm not judging you. I get it.
So you're
I understand.
so for people, then let's because you were saying to come into the office, you should beg to want to come into the office because, and it seems, and I agree with you, you're going to get visibility time with your leader. You're going to get visibility on the projects that you're working on. You're going to get a lot of informal training and mentorship and coaching from the people that you're with. You're going to learn social skills. And there's been a lot of studies that have been coming out recently, specifically about Gen Z, that they lack social skills, they lack collaboration. They're the Society for Human Resource Management called them the least resilient, least prepared generation alive. And so if you come to the office,
Read all
I would
that.
imagine it
Yeah,
would fix a lot
absolutely.
of those challenges.
It would help them. It's like I said, just think about it. I forget the office. Let's go back to preschool. Call in preschool. I'm just curious, like, what are they? Like, nobody would ever want to
Sounds
do
like a new
that.
business model.
You wouldn't have a friend. You'd have no one to
Yeah.
talk to the rest of your life. It's just not. I just think I'm not saying you have to be in 5 days a week and work 60 hours. Like, that's not my issue. Right? It's just not my call. Right? I'm just like the vice chairman here. I just help everybody. It's a great piece of my job. Right? I spent my life with a span of control. Now I have zero span of control. I have span of influence. That's all. I can only influence, and your influencing is only as good as
Yep.
you are. Control is completely different. So I'm just giving you ideas.
What
That's
are
all.
some of the things that you're paying attention to today when you're thinking about the business, the world of work? Um, what concerns do you have? What trends are you paying attention to? Where is your eye currently?
So on a lot of things, I think first of all, we started talking about leadership, and this is one that I do spend a lot of time on. We have a great program here at Stagwell called Next Dimension. And Next Dimension, you can't call it in. Everybody got to come. And we bring in sort of like that next level of people from all our companies to spend a
And
week
you have
together.
10,000 employees at Stagwell, or how many are 13? Okay.
13, like in that, somewhere's in that vicinity. Um, so we bring them in, and it's a week. We do it a few times a year. Mark speaks to them. I speak to them. Other people speak to them. We do classes on very specific things, and they work together on projects. So we bring in clients. This is actually pretty interesting. We bring in clients, not our clients.
Mm.
I always look for people who are not our clients, and we say to them, "Look, come to us with a brief. You own the ideas. Just if you'll spend the time briefing our teams and then listening to the presentations, like the ideas are yours. God bless you." And it's amazing. Like we get these great people come in, great clients, brief our teams, and the teams have to work together, and each team has a mentor or whatever. So I'm obsessed with this because I spent my life. I really do believe that my career was made by my mentors.
Mm.
I stood on the shoulders of giants, like people who mentored me from the day I came into the
Who are some of your
business.
greatest mentors?
So, one of my first mentors I mentioned before was this guy, Edward Chapman. Ed was an incredible human being. He was a Navy pilot, a Navy carrier pilot. He was a member of the 500 Club, one of the first 500 humans to fly faster than the speed of sound. He was a sailor. He was an amazing guy. So imagine I come in and I was a kid. I just come back at this point. I wasn't married. I was a young guy, and I had been in Israel for a year. This was in 1973, right after the war. So I'd been there during the war and after. And I came in, and I had a suit. My parents bought me a couple of suits for the summer job. And I remember walking into his office, and again, I had long hair and a mustache, and I was probably even worse than I was later on. And here's this guy with a buzz cut and the big sailing boat behind him, and he's an incredible writer, and I thought, oh my God, I'm screwed. Like that's it. Like how am I going to relate to this guy? And this guy became my mentor till the day he died.
Mm.
And so much so that my wife Debbie would always say, like, have you spoken to Ed? Like I never made a decision if I didn't speak to Ed. And Ed followed us around the world. When we lived in Israel, Ed came to visit us. We lived in Atlanta, Ed came to visit. Wherever we lived in the world, Ed came to stay with us and spend time with us. He was amazing. And Ed taught me a bunch of stuff. For example, things that to this day resonate. So in my world, he always said to me, "Don't ever take a corner office." He said, "There's no point to it." He said, "The size of your office, it's around, sit in the middle. Like, what do you care?" He was a big believer, actually. It's long before open offices. He really believed in that. He called it the boiler room because he was actually a political guy. So he did a lot of political marketing and stuff. So he said, just never do it. He said, never leave a job for money. Never leave a job for a title.
Interesting.
In my life, I never changed jobs to make more money or to get another title, ever,
Huh.
ever. In fact, a couple of times, it's not like I changed jobs that often because I didn't, but if I did, a couple of times I went actually less money, always made it up in 6 months because I thought I could learn more in that job. Like it just would fill something out for me. So Ed was an incredibly important mentor to
Well,
me, and
I
said that
want to touch on
when I got to
one point that you made. Never leave a job for money. It seems to a lot of people do leave jobs for money. So
they do.
why is that a bad idea?
So Look, I get if somebody leaves a job because he gets paid 10 times more. Most people don't get paid 10 times more. I can show you that on average, within a couple of years, if you're working in a good place, like you should only leave a job if you don't like where you are, if you're not growing. If you're growing, I can almost guarantee you that you'll catch up in a couple of years to whatever the people outside are going to pay you. Now, if you think you're going to learn more, see, that's what I did. I only
Mm.
went if I thought, okay, I sort of exhausted this. I got to do this. So when I left YNR in 96, was the first time I left, actually the second time I left, but I did it because I started an internet company with two friends. And they came to me one night and they said, "What are you doing? We'll make you president of the New York office with us." I said, "No, guys, that's not it. I'm not leaving to work for your competitor. I'm going to because I'm learning something. This is new. I want to do this. I want to take a company public. I want to have that experience." And so to their credit, they helped me because I wasn't making, we started up a company. We didn't have any money. We weren't like taking big salaries or any salary
Yeah.
really, just like nothing. So they said, "All right, you know what? We're going to keep you for 2 years just as a consultant, just so you have the money to go do this." Like, just think about that. Think how smart they were because I came back to
Yeah.
them
Hmm.
ultimately. So yeah, I mean, I think you never do that. But let me just go on a couple of more mentors just
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
show you
Yeah.
what I. So then when I got to Y&R, I worked for this guy David Fulton. Now I didn't just work for him. Remember, I was like nobody. He was like 6 levels above me. I don't know. He must have been like 30 at the time, maybe 32. He was already like whatever, and he was incredible. David was the most buttoned up person ever. And his office was always open. Like I was nobody. I was like 4 levels down, but he was our group head. And I could go and talk to him about anything. And he helped me because he saw that I was frustrated in the sense that I wanted to be a creator. So here I was working as a trainee in the media group. Meanwhile, I was selling scripts to Y&R Ventures, which was this little company that they had, because that's how I got my creative thing going. And he gave me opportunities to do things that the other young guys weren't doing. And then I worked for somebody who worked for him, Mark Arnold. And you have to understand, I can't add numbers. Like it's like math's not my thing. But that was huge. It's just like you had to be able to do it, and it had to be accurate, and you had to be like whatever. And it just wasn't my thing. I wasn't great at it. And Mark would push me and push me, and I thought he hated me. I thought he hated me. And then I discovered that one day when I had like my 8 month review or whatever it was, 6 month review, David told me, "Oh, Mark says you're really progressing. You're really," and it was such a lesson for me
Mm.
that Mark just wanted me to to get my to be who I should be. And he became one of my close friends. And sadly, he passed away young. But I realized, like, what a lesson! What a lesson! Just don't judge everybody so quick, right? Like that's a mentoring lesson. Don't assume that this guy is pushing you; he hates you. And also, like, take the time to think about people who work for you when you get into that place, and push them too. Make them be the best that they can possibly be to meet their
Yeah.
potential. So that was Mark. Harold Burson, who founded Burson Marsteller, was a mentor.
Oh.
Lester Wonderman, who founded Wonderman, was my mentor. Alex Kroll, who recently passed away, was the legendary CEO, the last legendary CEO of Y&R before they went public. I worked directly for him. He was a mentor. All these people taught me things. They taught me how to think. They taught me different ways of thinking, different ways of looking at the world. Um, and then I'll tell you one other person that was not a mentor, which you'll understand why, but just a role model, like just incredible. So a number of years ago, before COVID, I had the opportunity to meet the Pope,
Wow.
but not just to meet the Pope. Together with a small group of three people, actually four, to have an hour with the Pope. And it's a long story. I won't go into why we were there. It's a beautiful story, but it's not important. What's important about the story is that came 4 o'clock or whatever time we were in the Pope's private residence. We weren't in the Vatican. He didn't stay. This Pope is an amazing guy. He didn't stay in the fancy residence. He stayed when it's called the Vatican Hotel. We're in his private like meeting room, and comes the time, and I assume there's going to be like fanfare. Someone's going to come in, they're going to announce him, he's going to walk in, the whole deal. Door opens, the Pope is standing there. Like literally, I swear to you, Jacob, he's just standing there. And it's like, oh my God. Like, where's the entourage? Like, I've seen CMOs walk in with 30 people
Yeah.
behind them and four phones and the camera. This is the freaking Pope. He's standing there without entourage. So, and he comes into the room, and there was one chair less. And he starts going out to get it. And I said, no, Holy Father, just show me where it is. So I went and I brought a chair. Now, I'm obsessed with religions. Like, I'm really into it. And so the shoes of the fishermen are a big deal. And the Pope, so those are the red leather shoes that the Pope has traditionally worn, and you'll understand why I said that in a minute. So they're either made in modern times by Ferragamo or Prada, custom made, and each pair is like $15,000,
Wow.
something $10,000, whatever it is. The previous Pope, the German guy, had like a bunch of pairs, like he was really into them. I looked down because I was curious, like which he had on, Prada or Ferragamo. He was wearing a pair of like $50 orthopedic black shoes. And he sat with us by himself, no entourage. One of our crew spoke Spanish because that's how we became. He's a friend of his. And so he translated. He understands English, doesn't speak it, for an hour.
Wow. That's a cool story.
Yeah. And so I walked out of there and I said, humility. I've always written about that, like humility being a thing about true leaders. His humility was
Mm.
beyond, but it was
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't humble. Humble is Uriah Heep from David Copperfield. "Yeah, I'm so humble, Mr. Copperfield. I'm so humble." So you know that that's bullshit. He had true humility, like you felt it, you know. So, anyways, that's my.
I thought you were going for
But
the
the
for the
truth is,
rock band Uriah Heep too. Also a great band.
that also took great band, but not
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same. So I think that that's the problem. I think today we get confused between leaders and people who have power or perceived power.
Mm.
It's not the same thing. See, an org chart has nothing to do with leadership,
Yeah.
but we think it does. Org chart just tells you where you sit in the pecking order. It's got nothing to do with leadership, right? Very often, and I'm sure you've seen this too, like I've seen organizations where the leadership is actually down at the bottom or in the middle.
Yeah.
Like there's just somebody who's a natural leader and they're just sort of making stuff happen. But at the top, you've got somebody who sits in an org chart and has perceived power or management,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem. We've become, and which is why, by the way, there's so much bad behavior in corporations because people see whether it's a CEO or others behaving like unbridled power and you know humiliating people or whatever it is. That's not leadership. They're not leaders. No one's following them because they want to. They're following them because they have no
Yeah.
choice. So yeah, they do have a choice. They could quit, but you know, that's like quitting because you don't want to come into
Yeah.
the office. Like, get a better job, and it's good. So meanwhile, you're making money, you're getting paid, so you kind of tough it out. But I think that's the problem
Mm.
today, and that's again another reason why it's important to come into the office because you learn leadership skills. You learn how to if you're a natural leader. I don't think everybody's a leader, honestly, but if you are, you're never going to discover it
Yeah.
online
That's a great quote. You're
ever.
never going to discover that you're a leader online. I love that. David, I feel like I could talk to you for another hour because you have some really cool stories, and I wish I would have asked you more about your I mean, we got into the, the work from home and the work ethic, which I thought was really interesting, but just the people that you worked with, the mentors that you had, it seems like such a fascinating story. So maybe we'll have you back on the show and we'll just talk about your mentors and what you learned from them.
Talk about people, I'd love to. I have such great stories about incredible people in this
Yeah,
industry.
that might be fun. We'll have to set up another time for that.
I was blessed to be with the
Yeah.
best. But look, I consider myself blessed now. I
Life is good.
life is great. I'm at Stagwell. I love I love being here. I said at the beginning, I love the people. Um, I love working for Mark and Jay, and there's just a we have a great there's a great vibe here.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, Mark will turn to me and say, "Wasn't like this, was it?" No, it wasn't like it. Like, he's created a company here. People have respect for each other.
Yeah.
Ideas are ideas are valued. Collaboration works. It's pretty
Yeah,
astounding.
as it should be. Where can people go to learn more about you? I know you're very, very prolific on LinkedIn. You have a LinkedIn newsletter there. You're putting stuff, I think, a few times a week, actually. Uh,
Well, twice a week is my newsletter, as Imagine.
okay.
I have a pretty big following, 900. Like, I'm just shy of
Just
a
have it.
bit
We're gonna get
shy
you to a
of
million after this, hopefully.
a million, but people are invited to read it. That's a lot of, I mean, short of, somebody like Richard Branson. I'm not a star. By the way, it's all organic. I've never paid for like a person signing up or a follower ever on any social media. So I kind of write and do my thing. That's probably the best
All right.
place.
So on LinkedIn, David Sable, very easy to find. Um,
And there's a bunch of videos you can find. There's a whole slew where I talk about everything from my view of Judaism, which is, as I said earlier, I keep Sabbath and whatever, so I talk a lot about that, and just my views on technology, on all kinds of
yeah.
stuff. So yeah, please.
David, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show at some point in the future.
And Jacob, thank you so much for inviting me. I really had a great time. I loved it. It was just a great. Also, I could have talked forever, which is my problem in life. But what
It's a
can I
good
tell
problem
you?
to have. You get a little glass of wine, and you can just talk the night away.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I'll see all you next week. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Future Ready Leadership. If you want to get access to more content on how you can become future ready, make sure to subscribe to the newsletter. It's thefutureorganization.com/newsletter. And if you enjoyed this episode, please send it to somebody who you would like to see become a better leader. Thanks for listening or watching, and I will see you next time.